Thank you, Geoffrey, and I'd just like to say that I think you really nailed that introduction.
All right, check.
CTA is honored to be here this evening, to be a part of this wonderful and meaningful event, and to be a decade-long supporter of the Churchill Club. We're actually based in Washington, D.C., but whenever I'm out here, I always try to stop by and visit our friends at Churchill Club. And so it's an honor to be able to present the Game Changer Award tonight. It is not often that companies actually get to change the world in a significant way and change the way we live our lives. This company hasn't done it just once, but they've done it 3 times. Not that long ago, they pioneered actually mailing you DVDs, sending you DVDs through the mail, changing the way we accessed physical media. But not resting there, they then built a market-leading online content distribution channel and changing yet again the way we consume content. And along that way, creating entirely new terms like binge watching. They are now embarking on the 3rd phase of changing the game and changing the way that we live by becoming a major contributor to original content. This year they took home 9 Emmys. They've committed $600 million to original content. And when Reed Hastings took the stage at CES, he announced to the world that we were watching the birth of a global television network. So you guessed it, the winner of the 2016 Game Changer Award. Yeah. See, I was going back to when I was still having DVDs mailed to me. Now, fast forwarding to 2016, the winner, of course, is Netflix. Neil Hunt is here to accept that award, so please welcome me in inviting Neil up to the stage.
There he is.
Right here. And Paul Holland of Foundation Capital will join us as well for a conversation.
I want to give that to Neil.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Well, that's
there you go.
Come on in. Yeah, thank you. Okay, good deal. Good.
Where do you want to be? Right, left? I'll go over this way. I can face you.
That way better.
All right. Oh, boy. Thanks, everybody, on behalf of Neil and myself. So probably a little bit of background. Neil and I have known each other for 24 years. We met when he was sort of junior head of technology at a little startup called Pure Software, and I was junior head of sales at a little startup called Pure Software. We were 9 years old. Our CEO, who's become a lot more famous since then, Reed Hastings, was approximately 10 years old. So we're all child prodigies. I don't know where to begin with Neil. First, often you get involved in speaking things and somebody says, well, we introduced the speaker. And I can't think of anybody I'm more honored to introduce than Neil Hunt. I learned what it was like to be in an excellent product organization, which I've spent my whole career now at Foundation Capital looking for young Neil Hunts. And the reason for that is that Neil exhibits basically all the qualities you're looking for in somebody who's going to lead product in your organization. Leadership, intelligence, technical acumen, and also his ability to kind of look ahead and see strategy. So I couldn't be any more thrilled. Foundation couldn't be any more thrilled. We were a Series B lead at Netflix, my partner Mike Hsu. So all of that has been terrific. But I think the focus tonight is for us to kind of get inside the tent, as it were. Let's learn a little bit more about Netflix. Let's learn a little bit more about how one of the strongest heads of products on the planet runs his organization and creates value. And first, I'll open with that with just a very basic question. What does it mean to be head of product at Netflix? What does that job entail?
Well, the product development team is a product management and engineering team. And we're responsible for designing, building, and operating essentially all of the technology that underlies Netflix. That's the the clients that you use, the apps on your phone, the apps on your TV, the website, the servers on the back end, the recommendations, the streaming technology. And I have to shout out somewhere in the back here, I've got a cheering crew of various members of my esteemed team. Couldn't have done it without you. I've been very fortunate, I think, to recruit a bunch of very talented individuals to help build this thing. And we've been going at it for 17 years now. I've been at Netflix, and quite a number of these people have been with me for a long time. We've accomplished quite a lot, I think.
Put together a great team. So one of your roles is originating product, which at a place like Netflix must just be like a kid in a candy store. It must be amazing. How do you bring your point of view, your specific way of thinking about how products should be developed, how do you bring that into the equation?
Well, I like to think that there are... the way that... The key question here is, what do we want to build? What are features, what capabilities, what things do we need to build for our customers? And the traditional way that you figured out what to build was that you listened to the hippo, the highest paid person's opinion. And for hundreds of years, the hippo was who led a product organization and decided what to build. And what we've learned is that the hippo's opinion is often wrong. Sometimes it gets it right, but often it's wrong. And so then smart companies decided that it was better to listen to their customers instead and interview the customers and do focus groups and research. And we learned, too, that customers actually are singularly poor articulating what they need. And so we've moved into kind of a third generation, as many people here have done, in terms of bringing the scientific approach. We call it consumer science, A/B testing. We come up with an idea. Maybe to a fault, we build it as a test case, and then we field the idea against the original to maybe 1 million customers each, and then we measure how people react to that. We measure the metrics that are of interest, the hours of streaming, the retention, the acquisition, so on and so forth. And by getting real data back from real customers, we get to learn just how poorly we guessed what would work and what wouldn't work. And occasionally we get a win. We did about 600 tests last year. About 150 of them we had some kind of material win. So about every couple of days we get to step the product one little bit better, whether it's a piece of copy or a new algorithm or something more significant. But it's very incremental. It's very much driven by customer feedback, and we call it the consumer science approach.
It's terrific. So one of the things, we'll change course a little bit. Normally, we're talking ahead of product. You just kind of veer away from sort of the HR issues and the people issues in the company as a bit of a stereotype that certainly doesn't apply in your case. But the notion of culture at Netflix has, of course, become a pretty big deal. And I understand that Sheryl Sandberg has called the Netflix culture document one of the most important documents in recent times in the Silicon Valley. How do you interpret that? I mean, you've been there 17 years, been running product. What does that question mean to you?
It all started back in about 2000. And many of you may remember that there was an internet bubble in 2000 and it burst. And we were kind of in the wrong place. We were spending heavily and had a big team of 20 or 30. And we were running out of money real quick. And we ended up cutting deeply. We cut about a third of the staff. And it was an extremely painful experience. But the remarkable thing was that along with cutting staff, we cut a lot of surplus things that we were doing. We really focused on what was important. And we began to realize that, you know what, this actually feels pretty good. We've really focused in on the things that matter, and we've got the right set of people, and we're really going to make this happen. And there are a lot of discussions came out of that effort, discussions about how to run an organization that would avoid the chaos of complexity. We knew that if we were successful, we were going to be a big organization. My team's about 1,600 people now. How do you run a big organization without tripping over your toes? And we worried about process being the rules that prevent you getting in trouble, but they also prevent you doing things nimbly and aggressively. And so we spent a lot of time thinking about how we could do things differently and better, and we came up with freedom and responsibility, and the idea to treat people as mature adults, give them the freedom to go what needs to be done, eliminate the stupid rules, and then expect people to take responsibility for doing the best thing for the business, the best thing that you can do. And from that starting point, we engineered things like candidness and feedback. Let's make sure that if you don't like what somebody's doing, you don't just tolerate it, you tell them that they're doing it wrong. And you give them the interesting feedback that helps everybody to improve. It's a great gift. It's difficult and painful to give that feedback, but it's a great gift to get the feedback and learn that, no, you could have done that better. And it helps everyone to improve. And then, things like the no vacation policy that many of you have heard about. So a lot of those things come out of this. You treat people as adults and you expect them to take the time they need to refresh and get their work done, and that's great. And so I think the culture has been a really big piece of keeping our organization nimble and effective. And I have to credit Bobby, who's sitting in the table here, as being our tech HR rep, and has helped us to really continue to improve. It's really a process continuing to try to grow better and better every week, every month, every year.
I've been fortunate enough to spend time around most of the executives at Netflix over the years, and I love the fact that each of you has so much passion around that topic. It really just, it sort of bleeds the company colors and inspires people. So I think that's terrific that you guys have managed to pull that off. Back more, maybe you're into the technology and the product, data. Data is a huge element of what you guys do. Yep. Over the years, there's been lots of coverage about how you think about data, how you create different things around it. How do you think about it? Like, what's important about data? What do you care about? What do you not care as much about? What do you do about it?
Well, it kind of goes along with the consumer science approach. It's all data-driven, what happens. But we use data for everything. But perhaps the most important thing we do with data is to confront the moment of truth. So you sit down in front of Netflix, you sit down in front of your television, and our consumer insights data tells us that we have 30 to 60 to 90 seconds to capture your interest by putting great stuff in front of you. Now, if you were in front of a linear television, you'd flip through a dozen favorite channels, and one of them would suffice, and off you go. And we have thousands or tens of thousands of choices, and so you're not going to flip through 10,000 choices. That's just way beyond the scale of most people's attention span. And so it's how do I distill thousands of choices down to 10 or a dozen or a couple of screenfuls that make sure that I capture your interest. And I want to be Netflix for everyone. I don't want to make a channel that's themed and stylized towards kids or towards young adults. I want to be able to do everything. So personalization, being able to put the right choices in front of everybody. Think of it as 80 million Netflixes for 80 million subscribers, and using the feedback from what you've watched in the past to be able to predict the kinds of things that are interesting that you might want to watch in the future. Make sure that those go up on that first screen so it can capture your interest. And that's sort of been a passion that's driven the data team since 1999. We started working on personalization. I think Caitlin, my head of science and algorithms, is here and is driving a lot of that work too. We work very hard to use the data to the benefit of putting the right choices in front of people. I think it's a huge and interesting problem. It's one that affects lots of businesses that deal in taste-based product. I think we're a small way into a giant problem. I think we'll continue to make progress for a long way. Just to put the scale on it, we generate about 150 million hours of viewing every day. That's tens of billions of data points about stuff that you watched and didn't watch every month. Tens of billions. That's a lot of data. From that, we can pull a lot of insights and make a lot of good predictions. And we've done things like the Netflix Prize and open sourcing a lot of data and algorithms in the space. And it's really been a very exciting area for us.
So back when we were 9 years old and we worked together at our first startup, it was impossible to imagine that either one of us or any of our colleagues would go and work someplace for 17 years, right?
Yes.
The people who worked for 17 years were working for, really old companies or for the government or some other kind of thing. That's just not what hip-hop happening startups do, right? So you're 17 years into a 19-year-old company, plus or minus. How do you keep it fresh? How do you keep it engaging? What about it? Because I think a lot of people, again, on the surface, a young person would look and go, well, I'm just never going to do that. And then yet you did it. Clearly you have no regrets about doing that. So what is it about that has kept it fresh?
Well, we heard a little about it in the introduction. It's really, for me, I think of it as 5 or 6 different jobs that I've done along the way. So in 1999, when I came aboard, the very first thing we had to invent subscription and build that and make it go. And then in 2007, we launched the streaming product, and that was a completely different thing. And then in 2008, we realized that, the technology we'd built for the DVD business was inadequate, and we were going to have to switch to a multi-data center cloud, all virtualized thing. And we had started on an 8-year odyssey of pushing into cloud technologies, which was pretty exciting. And then in 2010, we launched in Canada, and we followed that up with a big international expansion. And so there's a lot of excitement about what it means to be the first global television network at some level. And then Originals is the most recent innovation. And there's lots of fun stuff to do as we think about producing our own content. I never would have guessed as a geeky technologist 20 years ago that I'd be interested in shooting movies, but there you have it.
So Netflix has not always had a smooth path, right? I mean, it's one where I think people look at it today and go, wow, just huge, what a great impact, amazingly valuable organization, what a great management team. I always remind people of this. So we led the Series B of Netflix. We had about 11% of the company. There was a period of time where 11% of the company was worth approximately $22 million. It's like, I don't want to make people feel bad, but you could have bought as much Netflix as you wanted back when the stock dipped to around a $200 million market cap.
And J-Ho did.
Yeah, I know he did. We didn't, he did. J-Ho will get honored another night. Sorry, Jay. There you go. But, the thing that everybody knows, of course, is the transition to streaming, right? You're going to move from that, and you guys come out, and with all this force and conviction, you say, we're going to split the company, we're going to do this. I don't even remember, it was so bad, right? So what was happening then, and then how did you recover from that? What was that transition like?
We could talk for an hour about that.
Yes.
In a nutshell, it was 2011,
Yep.
and we were done with DVD. DVD had propelled us forward, and streaming was really taking root. And we knew that streaming was a disruption. It was the internet was the disruption. And the internet enabled different things. And there's been a lot of literature written, a lot of discussions, a lot of classes taught on disruptive innovation. One of the takeaways is that very, very few businesses get to survive a disruption. It's the incumbent dies, and the challenger succeeds. And so we didn't want to be that incumbent trying to transition into the internet digital era and not making it. And so we tacked our boat very, very hard. We decided we were going to split the company so that we could have our key people spend all of their attention focused on the streaming business, which is really quite a different business in some ways of looking at it. And we needed to go through a pretty big price increase in order to pay for the streaming content we were bringing on board, and in order to be able to leave the DVD business behind, and in order to be able to go international, all the stuff we needed to do. And we didn't do it gracefully, but we tacked that boat. And we pushed out the DVD guys, and they went to a different office, and they still generate a nice profit stream for us. But I and none of my team spends any time thinking about DVD at all. And eventually, we didn't sink the boat, fortunately. And we'll learn a bunch of lessons. We'll do it differently next time. But it had to be done, and it was going to be painful no matter what. And I think that's an important lesson to dig into for anyone who's interested in how do you disrupt yourself, how do you chart a new course forward, and not get so distracted by focusing on the big revenue streams and the customer requirements from your existing customers that you can't pay attention to the new customers and the new modalities and the new things you need to do to be successful in the disruptive business. So that was the key lesson for us.
So we're running short of time now. We're going to have to wrap up pretty soon, but I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the concept of original content. That was another one where people are looking and going, uh-oh, are they going to step in it again? What business do they have going into the original content business? They're a distribution company. They're a technology company. So what does that mean for you, both from a product perspective and as an executive in the company?
Yeah, the strategy behind original content was in part to have first-run content and not license second-run content. And by having first-run content, we make it more attractive to bring in new subscribers, and it's just generally more powerful. But there was a second piece of the strategy, which is, let's figure out how to have a source of content that makes sense when the studios wake up and figure out that they shouldn't sell us their content. Now they're waking up, and now we've built that capability to start doing original content. We're doing about 600 hours this year of original content, and it's growing great. The opportunity for us in a tech space is really twofold. And one is that we have unprecedented data to help us decide the kinds of shows and movies that we should make. We can predict an audience for it with some degree of fidelity. So we can at least lessen the risk of making interesting content. That's one thing. The second thing is that being technologists and not Hollywood, and being cloud fluent, we decided that there's a good opportunity to start thinking about studio in the cloud. How do we take a studio operation and put lots of that technology into the cloud too? So things all the way from how do you manage the union truck drivers bringing cameras onto the set, all the way to how do you archive the day's footage in the cloud so the stuff that was shot in India and Korea for Sense8 can get viewed and edited back in Hollywood tonight. And so there's lots of opportunities now. So that's the latest current challenge that we've just started in on. I think it'll be really exciting too.
And so as we wrap, you heard that you were going to win the award. Netflix is going to win the award around product for the game changer. What does that game changer concept mean in your context?
I think when you boil it down, the internet is the game changer here. The internet is a different distribution vehicle that enables all kinds of new things. It enables you to do on demand, which is a key piece. It enables you to do ad-free and be able to collect and pay for it in an interesting way. Ultimately, it enables things like international distribution, because we're not stuck behind physical distribution, which has all kinds of challenges to go international. We can serve our content to 130 new countries overnight, which is quite exciting. And I think that really it's building a new kind of TV and movie distribution business and studio business, in fact, around the notion that the internet enables us to do it differently. And so that, to me, is what enabled the game changing. And we were in the right place at the right time with the right money flow from the DVD business to be able to take advantage of that. And a lot of luck came along, and we've been very fortunate too.
We're all very fortunate because Netflix has enriched all of our lives. And thank you. Thank you for spending the time today, and thank you all for listening.